What's your assessment of the M&A and private equity scene in India as it stands?
Well, it's certainly been a challenging time in 2011 for Indian private equity and M&A transactions. If you look at it on a year-on-year basis, there certainly has been a significant drop in both deal volumes as well as deal values. But having said that, I think to some extent, I think the Indian market probably has been relatively shielded in comparison to some of the Western peer markets, primarily because the fundamental strength of the economy continues to be robust. My feel is that we're going to see a resurgence of deal making in the first quarter or second quarter of 2012.
Despite this challenging environment, Lexigen has been involved in some of the most interesting and sophisticated transactions in India in recent years.
Well, yes, I guess you could say that, and hopefully that's why we're here, receiving the awards for the M&A and private equity categories in the World Finance Legal Awards. If I look back over the last 2 to 3 years, we've worked on some trend-setting, market-defining transactions in a way. Our long-term approach of being focused premium segment players in the M&A and private equity markets has, started paying off, especially during the downtimes. And, we worked on a couple of very interesting transactions. For example, last year we represented Carlyle and Advent, two of the most reputable private equity firms, on their bid for a company called Putney Computer Systems, which is a $1.45 billion deal. Similarly, in 2010, we had a very interesting transaction where we represented a consortium of 6 highly reputable private equity firms, which invested in an infrastructure holding company that owns renewable energy assets in India, which is, again, the largest private equity deal in the power sector in India. So I could give several more examples like this, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that our focus on premium stuff and our focus on innovative structuring has helped us work on some marquee transactions in India.
From your experience then, what are the unique challenges in doing deals in India?
The first challenge, I would say, when it comes to doing M&A transactions or large private equity transactions, is a cultural one, which is Indian promoters or Indian founders of companies tend to be less inclined or very reluctant to give up control in transactions with private equity players. So what that often means is that you see a huge surge of what we call growth capital deals, which are effectively significant minority stake deals, but very seldom do you see a true control transaction taking place. You'll probably see less than 10 controlled transactions of reasonable value coming out of India, which is a pretty strange thing for the size of market that we are. The second challenge I would talk about is a regulatory one. We have a whole set of regulations in India that sometimes can make it a little confusing, if not difficult, to do controlled transactions. So, for example, one of the biggest complaints I hear from buyout funds or from strategic buyers in India is that they find it very difficult to squeeze out minority dissenting shareholders from companies when they're doing M&A transactions. And this, coupled with the fact that our delisting regulations imposed by our capital markets regulator provide for certain difficult hindrances in doing take-private deals, means that there is a general reluctance amongst Western buyers or private equity buyout firms to actually take serious interest in Indian M&A transactions. So what essentially that means is that while there are measures to protect minority shareholders in the event of M&A transactions, that is not balanced by a healthy regard for buyers. And that, I think, is a serious regulatory challenge as well.
So what particular areas of expertise does Lexigen bring to bear on these particular challenges?
If client feedback is anything to go by, we make a lot of effort to get client feedback after transactions. I would say the two most repeatedly positive feedback that we get are that clients value our focus and emphasis on innovation. They value the innovation that we bring to structuring, because India is not an easy market to do deals in. We have an exchange-controlled economy. We have restrictions with respect to investment in certain sectors. We have ambiguity in our laws because every few months there are policy changes announced which sometimes do not necessarily read harmoniously with one another. And that's where a firm like Lexigen comes in handy, because we have a very, very strong focus on building innovative structures in anticipation of transactions. One thing that we at Lexigen always do for our clients is we try to understand their global objectives or the global normal way of doing things that they're used to. And we try to understand the commercial rationale behind it, and we try to Indianize it, because we have a whole bunch of laws in India. The best example is we have exchange control regulations. We don't have a freely convertible currency. What all that means is that we need to spend a lot of time customizing global objectives to suit the regulatory limitations or the regulatory framework in India. So I would say that an Indianized or a localized approach to a global set of principles would serve investors much better in India.
Vijay Sambamurthi, thank you very much.
Pleasure is mine. Once again, thank you very much for having me over here.